Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. I'm your host for this session. I'm Sean.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're going to talk about a unique problem that you might be having in your sales process and your sales world. This 15 minutes is designed for salespeople, sales managers, and CEOs of the company that are trying to increase their revenue and trying to be more productive in your sales processes. So let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I was helping a friend of mine the other day. His car was running rough, and we had a meeting to go to, a joint meeting where we were both going to be present. And he gave me a call and he said, "Hey, Sean, can you pick me up at the car dealership? I need to get my car serviced. It's not running well." I met him there. He got in there 15 minutes before, was talking to the service manager. And the service manager did a real solid to my friend. He basically said, "I'm not going to work on your car. I want you to go and buy some high octane gas and put it in your car and see if it runs better." The theory was, from the service manager, was that wasn't the problem. And if he would have taken Mark's car and caused it to be in the shop for a day and not had any problems, but it would have inconvenienced Mark for the rest of the day, that would have been a bad thing for Mark. And he now has earned the respect of Mark because he focused on the root cause, which was a cause that actually he didn't even spend any money on. It was just go buy a better tank of gas. I want to talk about that today because today's sales leaders need to go beyond just uncovering buyer needs and matching their products and services against those buyer problems. They need to provide valuable ideas and insights during the sales process. They need to redefine the buyer's needs. The sellers themselves become the value, and that is exactly what today's buyers are looking for.
Backing up 20, 30, 40 years, salespeople were the carriers of information. Think pre-internet, think catalogs and heavy trunks where we had lots of information, feature, benefit, case study related information in our possession as salespeople. Now that paradigm has shifted where there's mountains of information available online. Now the onus is on the salesperson to be the value carrier, not just the information carrier. The value carrier means that we can do exactly what you just said and redefine the buyer needs, because we, as salespeople and leaders, understand how to add value to someone's perceived existing problem, which often becomes what? A symptom of the problem. Often I say that a salesperson's greatest value is first selling trust and then selling solutions.
I actually agree with that 100% because I tell everybody that sales is nothing more than the transfer of trust from me, because I trust my product. If I'm the salesperson, I trust my product. I trust the company providing that product. Otherwise, it wouldn't work for them. Transferring that trust to the buyer and having the buyer then have that trust that I can actually solve the problem that's at hand. Transferring of trust is what sales is all about. It's also about getting it done on my time frame, which is this week, this month, this quarter, this year kind of conversation. But it's still transferring a trust as the core essence of what we have to do. I also tell my salespeople, and in sales, there's kind of two different types of organizations or selling of products. There is I sell something that's repeatable. It's a consumable item. It's going to be used all the time. Steel manufacturers would fall into that, wood manufacturers, cleaning products, whatever. There's lots of things that are just consumed on a regular basis. But there are other things that are consumed occasionally, but are very important. Things like what Kevin sold in your past, big ERPs or distribution management systems. Those are big things. I've sold a lot of integration software in my past, a lot of business intelligence software in my past. Those things are not purchased by the customer on a regular basis. They're purchased very infrequently by the customer. And in those cases, the salesperson is actually the expert in that product. The buyer may not have that frame of reference of everything it can do, all the power it could bring, all the changes it could bring to the organization. The salesperson really does need to be the giver of information about how it can be used, not just what you can read on the internet, because we all know we're going to get checked out. 60% of the selling process happens before we show up. They're going to check us out. They're going to figure all that stuff out. But did you know you could also do this? Or did you know you could also solve that problem? Or what are you doing in this area of your business? Because we could affect that as well. That conversation may be above and beyond what the buyer is expecting. And that is the value that a salesperson can bring, especially in a complicated product or complicated situation.
Absolutely. And I want to tie back to something you said initially. It's the salesperson has to become the value. They are the difference maker. I had a great sales leader very early in my career, and she had this big region. And I remember going through like a coaching session with her. That was part of the training components. And she said, Kevin, my job as a sales leader is to become a tiebreaker in a sales arena where salespeople have equivalent or competing products or services or solutions. Think back to my ERP days where an accounting system is an accounting system is an accounting system. It's debits and credits. It's a chart of accounts. It's a something another that gets integrated with other systems. It is a unique solution, but it is fairly common across different platforms. The salesperson and sales leader, their whole job is to become the differentiators. The salesperson has to become that value. And it's not just a value of, hey, I'm different, hey, I'm cheaper. We're not competing on price here. We're competing on actual customer facing value. If you're a sales leader or a CEO, one of the questions you should be asking yourself is, what are our differentiators? What is our value to the market? And how does the buyer measure that value? When Sean and I go to work with companies, we talk about things like ideal clients, personas. How do we talk to them? Our value propositions or their value propositions, our three uniques, if we're using EOS terminology. All of these things need to meet in the salesperson's mind and skill set to deliver that value transformation in the market.
I was thinking of my days when I spent a short amount of time selling ERP software. And it was interesting. Every one of my competitors, and I'm going to use a term that was common in that time when I was doing that GLAPR, GLAPAR, GLAPR, for general ledger, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. Every product on the market did GLAPR, and it did just fine. The issue was more about how did it fit within the workflow of the customer? How many times did you have to hit enter? How many times did you have to use the mouse? How many times did this have to happen? It was the workflow process that happened. Where could things get automated? All of that. None of that, by the way, was ever going to be available by reading the internet. We weren't going to be eliminated by the internet, by that pre-research that buyer was going through before we showed up. We weren't going to be eliminated. We also weren't going to win because all of that extra feature that we built into our product that made it so easy for the accounts payable clerk to do her job or the accounts receivable clerk to do his job, all of that effort was not obvious on any website, and it wasn't obvious on our competitors' websites either. We had to spend time saying, tell us about your workflow. Tell us about how do you use your product today? What do you want it to do? Do you want to have a system that's easier to use? Do you want training to be an issue? All of those extra things were the value that the sales team had to deliver to the customer because the customer, the buyer, simply didn't know. Digging into that differentiation between us and our competition was important because we did something very, very unique in the marketplace that we were going after. And I would guarantee you that of everybody listening to our podcast, everybody has a unique. You talked about the EOS, what are my three uniques? Everybody has at least three uniques that is unique about their company, unique about their product, and unique about them specifically, the salesperson specifically. And how are you delivering that and making sure the customer understands the value of that so that when the buyer actually buys, they value that in the purchase that we have. And they actually make a decision based on those uniques, not based on what everybody else does as well.
I want to kind of tie all this together. I want to bring the line full circle. This is not linear. We're not starting someplace and going to another place. We're actually drawing a circle around value and how salespeople create it. We're talking about taking a salesperson and having them become the value and redefining the buyer problems. I want to lean and point back to some of our earlier content where we talked about the RAIN sales group. There are three big buckets of how they identify and deliver sales excellence. We think about resonate, differentiate, and substantiate. With value in a sales process and for a salesperson, asking better questions will allow us to resonate with the customer, will help us to identify and connect with their problems. Back to our ERP discussion, and we both got that experience. The way we create that differentiation with the GLAPAR fabric, the way we create differentiation is understanding how the customer runs their business. When those transactions occur, it's how they're applied and measured and metric, and that's how the business measures growth. But if we understand the inputs, the customer facing downstream from the person to their client, how they do business, if we understand as a salesperson or sales leader how they're doing that, we can prescribe, because remember, we're the integrators, we're the experts, we're the installers and trainers. If we can prescribe better solutions based on our unique understanding, we can deliver a better customer service experience, which makes us, again, resonate more because we understand more and allows us to differentiate. And likely, when ERPs, as all RPs are, they're probably purpose-built for specific industries and there's nuances. That allows us to also talk about how we substantiate those differences, how we have done this before, or in another customer vertical or instance where we've created a custom solution that would likely apply to our customer, to our prospects' unique set of challenges currently. Again, part of being a good or great salesperson goes all the way back to asking better questions. It allows us to create that value separation and to reframe the buyer's challenges and think about new solutions to old problems. We've all had somebody in a sales cycle say, well, we're a little different. We're a little different is kind of a tick mark in the box of they don't trust you yet that you can solve their problem. If you hear that, Mr. and Mrs. Salesperson listening now, you've got a resonation problem and you've got a differentiation problem. So let's go back that, triage that, and figure out how to be better at sales.
Asking great questions is key to transfer of trust. And I like to talk about this on a regular basis, that your job is to have that buyer trust that you are the best product to solve his problem today. And that may be expanding the problem by understanding the root cause of what's really going on. In other words, to use my example from the top of the episode, the service manager understood that the root cause of Mark's problem with his car was not spending a day in the shop or maybe a week in the shop. That would not solve the problem. Instead, what we need to do is solve the problem by prescribing the right solution. And sometimes that trust is built by saying, Mr. Customer, I'm not the right guy. Go talk to somebody else. Go buy something else. And that's okay as well. But we have to really focus on making that customer, making that buyer trust that you are telling them the truth, trust that you are going to solve the problem, and trust that you can help them at the end of the day.
Great example there, really relating back to not only resonating with the customer, but seeing beyond the initial value. Your friend who went to the dealership thought he had a car problem. Turns out he had an input problem. When you've got an input problem in the sales process, either you haven't gone far enough in diagnosing the pain, or there's been some other customer perception about the service you're offering. As a salesperson, as a sales leader, it's up to us to go back and retrace some of those steps and provide a unique, differentiated solution to reframe the buyer's needs. When we do that, we have a unique offering to the market that allows us to be more successful. Sean, we're here at the top of the 15 minutes. This time has flown by. For everyone out there, Sean and I are going to sign off and say, happy selling.
And that's a wrap. Thanks again for joining Kevin and Sean on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Tune in every Tuesday, or when our podcast drops every Tuesday at 4:30, wherever you consume your podcast. And don't miss our monthly CEO workshop, where we unpack some of the big CEO questions facing your business. Until next time, we're looking forward to seeing you. Happy selling.